The twin suns of Zirion 7 cast long shadows across the excavation site, as Zara Blackwood carefully brushed sediment from what appeared to be the find of her career. The crystalline structure pulsed with an inner light that seemed to respond to her proximity, its surface covered in intricate patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Don't even think about it, Marcus," she called without turning around. Sensing the presence behind her, "I know that look." Marcus Kane crouched beside her, his green eyes fixed on the artifact with an intensity that made Zara's skin crawl. At 32, Marcus was one of the youngest senior explorers in the Colonial Survey Corps, and his reputation for taking dangerous risks preceded him wherever he went. "It's beautiful," he murmured, reaching toward the crystal. Zara's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. "Beautiful things on alien worlds tend to be the most dangerous. This isn't some trinket you can add to your collection." Marcus pulled his hand back, but his gaze never left the artifact. "What makes you so certain it's dangerous?" "It could be ceremonial. Decorative, because it's been calling to me since we uncovered it 3 days ago." Zara interrupted, her voice dropping to a whisper. "In my dreams, Marcus, I see things. Visions of this planet's former inhabitants. They weren't human, but they weren't so different from us either. And this thing," she gestured at the crystal, "it destroyed them." The excavation site fell silent except for the whisper of wind through the alien grass that covered the rolling hills beyond their dig. The rest of Zara's team had returned to base camp for the evening, leaving only the two of them with the mysterious Relic. Marcus stood, towering over Zara's petite frame. His dark hair caught the dying light of the twin suns, and she found herself momentarily distracted by the way his jaw tightened. When he was determined to get his way, "Zara, you're an archaeologist, not a psychic," he said gently. "Dreams are just your subconscious processing the stress of the dig. This could be the discovery that changes everything we know about the sector. Or it could be the discovery that kills us both." She shot back, rising to face him. "The scans show it's not just crystalline, there's some kind of organic component woven throughout its structure. It's alive, Marcus, and it's hungry." Marcus stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixed with the dust of the dig site. "Then we study it properly. We run more tests. We leave it alone." Zara finished firmly. "Some things are buried for a reason." But even as she spoke the words, she could see the stubborn set of his shoulders, the way his fingers twitched toward the artifact. Marcus had never walked away from a mystery in his life, and she knew with growing dread that he wouldn't start now. The crystal's pulsing intensified as if responding to their argument, casting dancing patterns of light across the excavation walls. In those patterns, Zara caught glimpses of the visions that had been haunting her sleep. Tall, graceful beings with luminescent skin reaching towards similar crystals, their faces contorting in agony as the artifacts consumed them from within. "Promise me," she said, gripping his arm. "Promise me you won't touch it until we know more." Marcus looked down at her, and for a moment, his expression softened. "Zara, promise me, Marcus. Please." He nodded slowly, but she could see the lie in his eyes. "I promise." That night, Zara lay in her tent listening to the alien sounds of Zirion 7's nocturnal creatures. Sleep eluded her, partly because of the visions and partly because she couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus was planning something reckless. She was right. The soft sound of footsteps on the excavation's metal walkways reached her ears around midnight. Zara quickly dressed and crept from her tent, following the sound toward the dig site. The artifact's glow was visible even from a distance, brighter than she'd ever seen it. Marcus stood at the edge of the excavation pit, staring down at the crystal. In the eerie light, his face looked haggard, as if he hadn't slept in days rather than hours. "Marcus, step away from it," Zara called softly, not wanting to startle him. He turned toward her, and she gasped. His eyes reflected the crystal's light, giving them an otherworldly gleam. "It's calling to me, Zara. I can hear it, singing." "That's exactly why you need to step away," she said, moving closer. "It's influencing your mind. Or maybe it's showing me the truth," Marcus replied, his voice strangely distant. "Maybe this is why we were meant to find it." Before Zara could react, Marcus jumped down into the excavation pit. The crystal's pulsing accelerated, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. Marcus, no. But it was too late. His hand made contact with the artifact's surface, and the world exploded into blinding light. When Zara's vision cleared, Marcus was on his knees, his hand fused to the crystal, his body convulsing as veins of light spread up his arm like liquid fire. The relic had found its new host, and despite her desperate warnings, the transformation had begun. The screaming started 3 hours after Marcus touched the crystal. Zara had managed to pull him away from the artifact, though not before the strange veins of light had spread halfway up his arm. Now he lay writhing in his sleeping bag while she frantically tried to reach base camp on the communication array. But the relic's energy was interfering with all their equipment. The pain. It's rewriting everything, Marcus gasped between spasms. His skin had taken on a translucent quality where the light touched it, revealing a network of crystalline structures forming beneath the surface. Zara knelt beside him, helpless. Every medical scanner she'd tried had either malfunctioned or shown readings that made no sense. According to the instruments, Marcus was dying and evolving simultaneously. "I'm going to get help," she said, reaching for her pack. "No." Marcus caught her wrist with his unaffected hand. "Something's coming." The ground vibrated with approaching footsteps, not human footsteps, but something else entirely. Through the pre-dawn darkness, a figure emerged from the alien grasslands, tall and willowy, with skin that shimmered like moonlight on water and hair that moved as if underwater. The being approached their camp with fluid grace. Zara reached for her sidearm, but the newcomer raised empty hands in a gesture of peace. "Your weapon will not harm me, and more importantly, it will not save him," the being said in perfect standard, though her voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in Zara's bones. "I am Nira Voss." I felt the awakening across the crystal plains. "You're Zyrionite," Zara breathed, staring at the first native they'd encountered since landing. "Your people were supposed to be extinct." "Many are," Nira replied, moving to Marcus's side with practiced efficiency. The crystal saw to that. She placed her hands on either side of Marcus's head, and her skin began to glow with the same light that was consuming him. "But some of us learned to coexist with their hunger." "What's happening to him?" Zara demanded, Nira's luminous eyes a shade of violet that seemed to contain swirling galaxies, met hers with sympathy. "The resonance stones were created by my ancestors as a bridge between consciousness and matter. They were meant to enhance our natural abilities, but they were flawed. They don't just enhance, they consume, convert, transform." Marcus's convulsions intensified, and Nira's glow brightened in response. "I can slow the process, but not here. The stone's influence is too strong. We must get him to my sanctuary." "I'm not going anywhere with you," Zara said, though she could see Marcus growing weaker by the minute. "How do I know you won't finish what that thing started?" Nira's expression hardened. "Because if I wanted him dead, human, I would simply leave him here to complete the transformation alone. In 6 hours, the crystal will have rewritten his entire cellular structure. In 12, his consciousness will be absorbed into the collective memory of the stone. In 18, she gestured toward the excavation pit where the relic still pulsed. There will be nothing left of Marcus Kane, but another voice in the crystal song. The words hit Zara like a physical blow. She looked down at Marcus, seeing the way the crystalline veins had spread to his shoulder and were now creeping toward his chest. His breathing was becoming labored, and when he opened his eyes, they flickered between their natural green and the same violet as Nira's. "Help him," Zara whispered. "Please." Nira nodded and began speaking in her native tongue, a language that sounded like wind chimes and flowing water. As she chanted, her skin brightened further, and Marcus's convulsions began to subside. "The sanctuary is a day's journey through the crystal caves," Nira explained as she worked. "My people built it to contain and study the stone's effects. It's the only place where the transformation can be properly managed." "Managed, not stopped?" Zara asked. "Once the bonding begins, it cannot be reversed," Nira said quietly. "But it can be guided, shaped. Your Marcus has a strong will, stronger than most who have touched the stones. There may be hope for him yet." As the twin suns rose over Zirion 7, they set out across the alien landscape. Marcus was unconscious, his transformed arm wrapped in a specially woven cloth that Nira had produced from her pack. The fabric seemed to absorb and redirect the crystal's energy, giving him some measure of relief. Zara walked beside the floating stretcher Nira had somehow constructed from local materials, her mind racing with questions. Why are you helping us? Your people have every reason to hate humans. Not all of us judge an entire species by the actions of a few, Nira replied, though there was something guarded in her tone. Besides, your Marcus may be the key to understanding something we've sought for generations, which is how to break the stone's hold without destroying the host. Nira glanced at Marcus's unconscious form. My people tried for centuries to master the resonance stones. Many died in the attempt. But humans, you process information differently. Your neural pathways are more chaotic, more adaptive. It may be that what killed us could save him. They entered the crystal caves as the suns reached their zenith. The caverns were vast and beautiful, filled with formations that sang in harmonies that made Zara's heart ache with their alien beauty. But there was something else in the music voices. She realized the consciousness of those who had been absorbed by the stones. They're still aware, she whispered in horror. Yes, Nira confirmed. The stones don't destroy consciousness, they collect it. Every person who has ever bonded with them still exists within the crystal matrix. It's why we call them resonance stones. They resonate with the accumulated knowledge and experiences of everyone they've touched. Marcus stirred on the stretcher, his eyes opening to reveal pupils that were now elongated like Nira's. I can hear them, he said weakly. They're teaching me, showing me things about this world, about the universe. It's incredible, Zara. The knowledge they contain, it's killing you, Zara said firmly. No, Marcus replied, struggling to sit up. It's changing me. I can feel my mind expanding, connecting to something vast and ancient. I understand now why the stones were created. They weren't weapons, they were libraries, repositories of consciousness, meant to preserve knowledge across generations. Nira's expression grew troubled. That's how it begins, she murmured, the seduction of infinite knowledge. But knowledge without wisdom, consciousness without individual will, that's not life. Marcus Kane, that's merely existence. As they reached the heart of the cave system, Zara saw their destination, a structure that seemed to grow from the living rock itself. Its walls covered in the same patterns that adorned the resonance stone. The sanctuary promised answers, but as she watched the crystalline veins spread further across Marcus's body, she wondered if they would arrive in time to save the man she was beginning to realize. She cared for more than she'd admitted. The transformation was accelerating, and with each passing hour, less of Marcus remained. The sanctuary defied every law of architecture Zara knew. Its walls curved and flowed like frozen water, embedded with thousands of tiny crystals that pulsed in slow, hypnotic rhythms. As they entered the main chamber, she felt the weight of countless eyes upon her, not physical eyes, but the accumulated consciousness of generations trapped within the crystal matrix. Welcome to the archive of souls, Nira said, guiding Marcus's stretcher to a raised platform in the center of the room. Here, my people attempted to unlock the secrets of the resonance stones without falling victim to their hunger. Marcus was fully conscious now, but when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that hadn't been there before. I can feel them all, he whispered, his transformed arm reaching toward the crystal formations on the walls. Thousands of minds, all connected, all sharing their experiences. It's like having access to an entire civilization's memories, and losing your own in the process. Came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. Zara spun around to see another Zyrionite approaching, male, with the same luminous skin as Nira but darker, more angular features. Where Nira moved with fluid grace, this newcomer stalked with predatory precision. Kale, Nira said, her voice carefully neutral. I didn't expect to see you here. When the stones sing, we all hear their call, Kale replied, his violet eyes fixed on Marcus. Though I'm surprised you'd bring an outsider to the sanctuary, especially a human. The tension between Nira and Kale was palpable, and Zara found herself stepping protectively closer to Marcus's platform. Who is he? Kale Thornton, Nira said quietly. Former keeper of the sanctuary. Former, many things. Kale's laugh was bitter. former lover. She means, before she decided that preserving failed experiments was more important than advancing our people's evolution. The stones don't offer evolution, Nira snapped, her composure cracking. They offer obliteration with the illusion of transcendence. Yet, here you are, trying to save this human from the very fate our people have sought for generations. Kale circled the platform where Marcus lay, studying him like a specimen. Tell me, outsider, what do you hear in the crystal song? Marcus's eyes tracked Kel's movement, and when he spoke, his voice was stronger than it had been in hours. I hear the story of your people, the great experiments, the attempts to merge consciousness with crystal matrix, but I also hear the regret, the fear, the realization that you'd chosen a path with no return. Kel's expression darkened. You hear what you expect to hear. The stones show each mind what it needs to see to complete the bonding process. Then why do I see the Temple of Echoes? Marcus asked quietly. Both Nira and Kale froze. Zara looked. Between them, sensing she'd missed something crucial. What's the Temple of Echoes? She demanded. Nira moved to a wall covered in flowing script, her fingers tracing patterns that glowed at her touch. It's a myth, a place our ancestors supposedly built to contain the first and most powerful of the resonance stones. Not a myth, Marcus said, struggling to sit up. The crystalline veins had spread across his chest now, creating intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. I can see it in the collective memory, a structure built around a massive crystal formation designed to amplify and focus the stone's power. Your people didn't just want to preserve consciousness, they wanted to achieve true collective awareness. Kel's eyes gleamed with sudden interest. You can access the deep memories, the ones from before the Great Silence. Some of them, Marcus admitted, but they're fragmented, painful to process. I see glimpses of the temple, of the experiments conducted there. Your ancestors were trying to create a single unified consciousness that could span the stars. And they succeeded, Kale said with growing excitement. The temple still exists, hidden in the heart of the Crystal Mountains. If we could reach it, if we could access the primary stone, we could complete what our ancestors started, Nira finished. But her tone was horrified rather than excited. Kale, you can't seriously be considering this. The primary stone consumed an entire city. Everyone who tried to bond with it was lost. They weren't lost, Kale argued. They were transformed into something greater. And now we have the perfect candidate to complete the process. He gestured toward Marcus, a human mind, chaotic enough to resist full absorption, yet adaptable enough to bridge the gap between individual consciousness and collective awareness. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. You're talking about using Marcus as some kind of experimental subject. I'm talking about offering him apotheosis, Kale corrected. The chance to become something more than human, more than Zyrionite. A new form of consciousness that could unite not just our peoples, but entire galaxies. Marcus's transformed arm reached toward Nira, and when she took his hand, Zara saw the way the crystal veins pulsed in response to their touch. What do you think? He asked Nira. In your professional opinion, would I survive the attempt? I don't know, Nira admitted. But Marcus, even if you survived physically, you wouldn't be you anymore. The primary stone doesn't just add to consciousness, it subsumes it. You'd become part of something vast and alien. Or I could become the bridge between what we are and what we could be, Marcus replied. The visions are getting clearer, Nira. I can see what your ancestors were trying to achieve. Not domination or absorption, but synthesis, true unity while maintaining individual identity. Kale moved closer to the platform. Then you'll come with me to the temple. You'll attempt the bonding with the primary stone. Marcus looked at Zara, and she saw both the man she was falling for and the alien intelligence that was slowly taking hold of him. What do you think, Zara? Should I risk everything for the chance to save not just myself, but potentially bridge the gap between our species? The weight of the decision crushed down on her. She could see the logic in what he was proposing, but she could also see the danger. The Marcus she was growing to love might not survive the attempt, replaced by something vast and incomprehensible. The choice has to be yours, she said finally. But whatever you decide, I'm going with you. Nira squeezed Marcus's hand. As am I, if you're determined to attempt this. Then you'll need someone who understands the stone's nature to guide you through the process. Kale smiled, and for the first time since entering the sanctuary, he looked genuinely pleased. Then it settled. Tomorrow, we journey to the Temple of Echoes. As night fell over the sanctuary, Zara found herself wondering if they were about to witness the birth of a new form of consciousness or simply march Marcus toward a more elaborate form of suicide. The crystals around them pulsed with accumulated wisdom and regret, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the stones themselves were eager for one more chance to complete their ancient purpose. The Temple of Echoes stood like a crystalline mountain against the alien sky, its spires reaching toward the stars with an elegance that took Zara's breath away. The structure seemed to grow from the planet's crust itself, composed entirely of the same resonance crystal that was slowly consuming Marcus's body. The journey through the Crystal Mountains had taken 3 days, during which Marcus's transformation had accelerated dramatically. The crystalline veins now covered most of his torso and had begun to spread across his face in delicate, almost beautiful patterns. More disturbing was the way his consciousness seemed to drift in and out of focus, sometimes speaking as himself, and sometimes channeling voices from the stone's accumulated memories. The temple recognizes him, Kale observed as they approached the massive entrance. The archway was sealed with what appeared to be solid crystal, but as Marcus drew near, it began to resonate and slowly became translucent. "It's not recognition," Nira said quietly, her hand resting on the weapon at her side. "It's hunger." The primary stone senses a potential host. The interior of the temple was vast beyond comprehension. The walls soared into darkness above them, covered in flowing script that glowed and shifted as they watched. At the center of the main chamber, elevated on a dais of black stone, sat the primary stone, a crystal formation the size of a small building, pulsing with colors that had no names in any human language. "My God," Zara whispered, "it's enormous. The accumulated consciousness of an entire civilization." Marcus said, but his voice carried undertones that weren't his own. "I can hear them all. Every Zyrionite who ever lived, their experiences, their knowledge, their dreams, all preserved within the crystal matrix." Kale approached the dais with reverence. "This is what we've sought for generations. The chance to commune directly with our ancestors, to add our consciousness to theirs and achieve true immortality." "That's not immortality," Nira argued. "It's the death of individuality. Marcus, you have to understand, once you touch that stone, you won't be you anymore. You'll be part of something vast and inhuman." Marcus stepped toward the primary stone, and Zara saw the way the crystals in his body responded, glowing brighter with each step. "Maybe being human isn't enough anymore," he said. "Maybe it's time to become something more." "No," Zara said, stepping between him and the stone. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself for some abstract concept of evolution." Marcus looked down at her, and for a moment, his eyes cleared of their alien luminescence. "Zara, I'm dying. The transformation is killing me slowly. This might be my only chance to survive in any form." "Then we find another way," she insisted. "We go back to the sanctuary. We study the process more. There's no more time." Kale interrupted. "The bonding process has reached critical mass. Either he completes it with the primary stone, or his consciousness fragments and is lost forever." Nira moved to stand beside Zara. "He's right about the timeline, but not about the options. There's another way, Marcus. One that my people discovered, but never attempted." "What way?" Marcus asked. "Shared bonding," Nira said quietly. "Instead of one consciousness merging with the stone, two consciousnesses can share the burden. Each becomes an anchor for the other's individuality." Kale scoffed. "Theoretical nonsense. It's never been attempted because it's never worked. It's never been attempted because no Zyrionite has ever found someone compatible enough to risk the process," Nira corrected. "But humans and Zyrionites have proven surprisingly compatible in other ways." Zara felt her heart skip a beat. "You're talking about both of you bonding with the stone. That's twice as dangerous, but half as likely to result in total consciousness absorption," Nira explained. "If Marcus and I link our awareness before touching the primary stone, we could theoretically maintain our individual identities while gaining access to the collective knowledge." Marcus reached out with his transformed hand, and when Nira took it, both of their bodies began to glow with synchronized light. It could work, he said wonderingly. I can feel the possibility in the stone's resonance. But Nira, if we fail together, she said simply. And if we succeed, we might bridge the gap between our peoples in a way that's never been possible before. Kel's expression grew murderous. I won't allow this perversion of the sacred ritual. The primary stone was meant for Zirianites alone. The primary stone was meant to preserve and advance consciousness, Nira shot back. It doesn't care about species purity. Zera watched the interplay between the three of them and felt her heart breaking. She could see the logic in what Marcus and Nira were proposing, but she could also see something else: the way they looked at each other, the synchronization of their movements, the growing connection that went beyond mere necessity. You care about him, she said to Nira. Nira met her gaze directly. I do, and I know you do as well. But this isn't about romantic feelings, Zera. This is about survival, his, mine, and possibly our entire people's. Enough discussion, Kale snarled, drawing a weapon that crackled with energy. I've tolerated this contamination of our sacred sites long enough. The human will bond with the stone alone, as it was meant to be, or he'll die here. The standoff lasted only seconds before Marcus moved with speed. That shouldn't have been possible for someone in his condition. His transformed arm struck Kel's weapon aside, while Nira tackled the larger male around the waist. The three of them crashed to the temple floor in a tangle of limbs and alien curses. Now, Zera, Marcus shouted. Whatever you're going to do, do it now. But Zera was already moving, not toward the primary stone, but toward the temple's control mechanisms she'd noticed embedded in the walls. If the Zirianites had built this place to contain and study the stones, then there had to be safety protocols, ways to moderate the bonding process. Her fingers flew over the crystalline interfaces. Thankful for her years of experience with alien technology, the temple responded to her touch, ancient systems awakening with musical chimes and flowing displays of information. Emergency protocols, she muttered, searching through menu after menu of options. There has to be, yes. She activated a sequence, labeled with symbols that roughly translated to graduated integration. The primary stone's pulsing slowed, its overwhelming presence becoming more manageable. Zera, what did you do? Marcus asked, looking up from where he'd pinned Kale to the floor. Bought us time, she replied. The temple has systems designed to allow safe interaction with the primary stone. Gradual exposure rather than full immersion. Nira approached the stone cautiously, her hand extended. When she touched its surface, instead of the violent bonding they'd all expected, there was only a gentle warmth and a soft harmonization of her natural luminescence. With the crystal's glow, it's peaceful, she said wonderingly. I can feel the collective consciousness, but it's not overwhelming. It's like standing at the edge of an ocean instead of being thrown into its depths. Marcus joined her at the stone, and when their hands touched its surface together, the entire temple filled with music, not the alien harmonics of the crystals, but something that sounded almost like human and Zirianite voices singing in perfect harmony. The bridge, Marcus whispered. We're creating the bridge between our peoples. Kale struggled to his feet, his expression cycling through anger, confusion, and finally wonder. How is this possible? The stone should have consumed you both. Because we're not trying to conquer it or be consumed by it, Nira explained, her consciousness expanding to touch the edges of the vast collective. While maintaining her sense of self, we're joining with it as equals, as partners. As the process continued, Zera watched Marcus's transformation stabilize. The crystalline patterns on his skin became fixed and beautiful rather than spreading and consuming. He was changed, certainly, but he was still unmistakably himself. The knowledge he breathed. I can access all of it, but I'm still me, still human, and I'm still Zirianite, Nira added. But we're also something new, something that couldn't exist without both our species. Kale stood silently for a long moment, then slowly approached the stone. If I were to attempt this graduated process, together, Marcus said, extending his free hand, that's how it works, not domination, but cooperation. As Zara watched the three of them form a connection with the primary stone, she realized she was witnessing something unprecedented, the birth of a new form of consciousness that honored both individual identity and collective knowledge. The forbidden knowledge wasn't about power or transcendence, but about unity without absorption. The temple sang with their combined awareness, and for the first time since Marcus had touched that first crystal, Zara felt hope that they might all survive this transformation. 1 year had passed since the events at the Temple of Echoes, and the rebuilt sanctuary hummed with activity. What had once been a place of study and containment had become something entirely new, a research center where humans and Xerianites worked side by side, learning to integrate their technologies and understanding. Zara stood in the observation deck, watching Marcus demonstrate the controlled use of resonance crystal technology. To a group of mixed human and Xerianite students, the transformation had stabilized beautifully. The crystalline patterns that covered portions of his body now served as conduits for amazing abilities while leaving his essential humanity intact. Still fascinating to watch came a familiar voice behind her. Zara turned to find Nira approaching, her own body bearing the subtle changes that came from her connection to the primary stone. The Xerianite woman moved with a grace that seemed to bend reality around her, but her smile was warm and entirely genuine. "How are the negotiations going?" Zara asked. "Better than expected," Nira replied, joining her at the observation window. "The Colonial Council has agreed to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Xerianite Assembly. It seems the prospect of sharing resonance crystal technology has overcome their usual xenophobia." Below them, Marcus was helping a young human woman access one of the smaller resonance stones under carefully controlled conditions. The graduated integration process they'd developed allowed for limited bonding without the risk of consciousness absorption. "He's a natural teacher," Zara observed. "He's found his purpose," Nira agreed. "We all have." There was something in the Xerianite's tone that made Zara study her profile. Over the past year, she'd watched the relationship between Marcus and Nira develop into something beautiful and complex. They were bonded now in ways that went beyond the merely physical or emotional. Their consciousness were linked through the resonance crystals, allowing them to share thoughts and experiences in real time. "You love him," Zara said quietly. "I do," Nira admitted, "and he loves me. But that doesn't diminish what he felt for you, Zara, or what you meant to him during those critical early days." Zara felt a familiar pang of loss mixed with acceptance. She'd known from the moment she watched Marcus and Nira touch the primary stone together that something fundamental had changed between all of them. The connection they'd forged went beyond human understanding of relationships. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd been the one to touch that first crystal," she said. Nira's luminous eyes regarded her with sympathy. "You would have died," she said gently. "The resonance stones require a specific type of neural plasticity that humans rarely possess. Marcus was uniquely compatible, something we're still trying to understand." "Lucky him," Zara said with only mild bitterness. "Lucky all of us," Nira corrected. "Without his compatibility, we never would have discovered the graduated integration process. Thousands of lives have been saved because of what he went through." It was true. In the year since they'd unlocked the secrets of controlled bonding, dozens of Xerianites who had been slowly dying from incomplete crystal integration had been treated successfully. More importantly, the process had opened up possibilities for cooperation between species that no one had imagined. The door to the observation deck opened, and Marcus entered, his clothes still dusty from the training session. When he smiled at both women, the crystalline patterns on his face glowed softly with contentment. "How did the lesson go?" Nira asked, moving to his side with the fluid motion that had become natural to them both. "Better than expected," Marcus replied, accepting her embrace while extending his other arm to include Zara in their circle. 3 successful partial bondings, no adverse effects. We're getting better at identifying compatible candidates." Zara found herself caught between them, feeling the residual energy of their crystal-enhanced connection. It was like standing in a warm current of shared emotion and thought. For a moment, she could sense their feelings: love, contentment, purpose, and underneath it all, a deep gratitude for the path that had brought them together. The Council wants to accelerate the program, Marcus continued. They're talking about establishing crystal research facilities on 12 different worlds. Too fast, Nira said with concern. We still don't fully understand all the variables involved in human crystal compatibility, which is why they want us to oversee the expansion. Marcus explained. A traveling team of specialists who can ensure the safety protocols are followed. Zara felt her heart sink. You're leaving. We'd like you to come with us, Nira said quickly. The team needs someone with your archaeological expertise, especially if we're going to be working with newly discovered crystal sites. Besides, Marcus added with a grin, someone needs to keep us grounded. All this cosmic consciousness stuff can make you lose perspective. Zara looked between them, seeing the hope in their expressions. Over the past year, the three of them had formed an unusual but functional partnership. Marcus and Nira were bonded in ways that excluded her, but they'd also made it clear that she was essential to their work and their lives. What exactly are you offering? She asked. A chance to be part of something unprecedented. Marcus said, we're not just studying alien technology anymore, Zara. We're midwifing the birth of a new form of consciousness that could eventually span galaxies. And more personally, Nira added, a chance to continue being part of our family. It may not be traditional by human or Zyrionite standards, but it works for us. Zara considered their offer. The idea of traveling among the stars, unlocking the secrets of resonance crystal technology, and helping to bridge the gap between species was undeniably appealing. More than that, she'd grown to care deeply for both Marcus and Nira, even if their relationship had evolved beyond what she'd originally hoped for. What about Kale? She asked. Is he part of this traveling circus? Marcus and Nira exchanged a glance. Kale has chosen a different path, Nira explained. He's working with the Zyrionite Assembly to develop applications for crystal technology in our home systems. We agreed it was better if we worked separately for now. Too much history between you two. Zara guessed. Too much potential for conflict, Marcus confirmed. Kale still believes in Zyrionite superiority, even after everything we've discovered. He's not ready for true cooperation. The setting sun cast long shadows across the sanctuary, and Zara found herself thinking about the journey that had brought them all to this point. A year ago, she'd been a simple archaeologist warning against the dangers of alien artifacts. Now she was being invited to help reshape the relationship between entire civilizations. When do we leave? She asked. Marcus's smile could have powered the entire facility. Next week. There's a newly discovered crystal formation in the Vega system that's showing some unusual properties, and Nira added with a mischievous expression. The local species appears to be naturally compatible with resonance crystal technology. We might be looking at the first three-way consciousness bridge in galactic history. Zara laughed, feeling the last of her reservations fade away. You two are absolutely insane, you know that? Functionally insane, Marcus corrected, pulling both women closer, the best kind. As the three of them stood together watching the alien sunset, Zara reflected on how much had changed since that fateful day when Marcus had ignored her warnings and touched the forbidden relic. The transformation that had begun with his stubborn curiosity had grown into something none of them could have imagined, not just a personal evolution, but the foundation for a new form of civilization. The resonance crystals pulsed gently round them, no longer alien and threatening, but familiar and welcoming. They sang with the voices of countless consciousness working in harmony, and Zara found herself looking forward to adding her own voice to their cosmic choir. Some artifacts, she realized, weren't meant to be left buried. Some were meant to transform everything they touched, including the people brave enough or foolish enough to embrace their power. Ready for the next adventure? Marcus asked. Zara looked at her transformed companion and his extraordinary partner, feeling the pull of infinite possibilities stretching out before them among the stars. Ready, she said, and meant it completely. The unity of souls they'd achieved was just the beginning. Somewhere among the distant galaxies, new crystals waited to be discovered, new forms of consciousness waited to be born, and new bridges waited to be built between the vast diversity of life in the universe. Together, they would find them all.